within species. So we have to study the genetic variation between the species which comes under the genus Mangifera. So I hope you understand. For example, Mangifera genus having 30 species, so you have to study 30 species variation. You have to study variation among 30 species. So this is about the genetic diversity. So let's read it again. Genetic diversity refers to the variation of genes within species. The differences could be in alleles, different variants of same genes, in entire genes, the trait determining particular characteristics, or in chromosomal structure. Definitely there should be differentiation, or there should be variation in genetic level. That's why that species considered as a different species, rather all species rather same plants, or same what we can say. For example, if you have two examples. Genetic diversity refers to the variation of genes within species. The differences could be in alleles, different variants of same genes, in entire genes, the trait determining particular characteristics, or in chromosomal structures. The genetic diversity enables a population to adapt to its environment and to respond to natural selection. If a species has more genetic diversity, it can adapt better to the changed environmental conditions. Lower diversity in a species leads to uniformity, as is the case with large monoculture of genetically similar crop plants. Here, diversity is important for survival purpose. It may be possible the diversity causes due to the different environmental conditions or different biogeographical conditions. Hence, to survive in that particular environment, the species should have to adapt at genetical level, so that the successive generation of that particular species will adapt that changes, and that changes should be at genetical level. So if it is not happened, then the species will not survive no longer in that particular habitat, and there is the possibility of uniformity, and this type of uniformity is called as monoculture of genetically similar crop. And if for example any adverse climatic condition, or for example drought, earthquake, or any other condition, means excessive growing of other competitive species which they have belong to different genus. So in this case, that particular species must have to adapt genetically. So that's why genetic diversity is necessary to survive in the world. For example, the number of genes is about 450 to 700 in Mycoplasma, 4000 in Escherichia coli, 13,000 in Drosophila melanogaster, 32,000 to 5,000 in Oryza sativa, and 35,000 to 45,000 in Homo sapiens, that is human beings. Then let us see about the species diversity. In species diversity, species are distinct units of diversity, each playing a specific role in an ecosystem. Therefore, loss of species has consequences for the ecosystem as a whole. Species diversity refers to the variety of species within a region. So here, don't misunderstood in between the genetic diversity and species diversity. Here, in case of genetic diversity, it is the diversity between the species having same genus, and no doubt there is no any area bias. Means, for example, a particular genus consisting of 30 species. So here we have to see the variation among that 30 species. So whether the another 15 species may be in foreign countries. Okay, so here is no any area restriction about the genetic diversity level. Okay, so here in case of genetic diversity, we are going to see diversity among the species. Okay, genetic diversity among the species which is not restricted to the particular area. And in case of species diversity, we are going to see diversity of species within a particular area or biogeographical zone. So species are distinct units of diversity, each playing a specific role in an ecosystem. Therefore, loss of species has consequences for the ecosystem as a whole. For example, a particular species may lost due to deforestation, due to human hazards, or due to human activities. So after several years, the species may get there is a great chances the species may get lost. For example, the species may be medicinally important. That's why people are using it for making the medicines. There are various reasons. So that due to that reasons, the number of species in that particular area may get lost, or that we call as species extinctions. So species diversity, because here in biodiversity or in ecosystem, there is a one living species is depend on the other living species. If for example, if certain species may lost or may extinct due to these some activities, so it is directly affected on the environmental cycles, directly affect on the other living organisms which are directly or indirectly depend on that particular species. And it is also and ultimately it is also human beings also affected by these things. For example, due to deforestation, loss of there is a chances of loss of many through flora and fauna. Flora means plant diversity, fauna means animal diversity. Due to loss of flora, means due to loss of forest plants, the forest plants means one plant is the dwelling place of other birds, animals, and on that animals, other prey animals feeds on them. So ultimately, tiger and other animals comes in a village places, and they get trouble to the village people because of this is the reason loss of species, certain species is responsible for all these nuisance. So species diversity refers to the diversity of species within a region. Simplest measure of a species diversity is species richness, that is the number of species per unit area. The number of species increases with area of the site. Generally, here is this is one more important example is that the number of species increases with area of the site. Hence, if the area of the site increases, the number of species ultimately increases. So generally, greater the species richness, greater is the species diversity. However, number of individuals among the species may also vary, resulting into differences in evenness or equitability and consequently in diversity. Here, after that, let us see about the ecosystem diversity. Diversity at the level of community and ecosystem has three perspectives. Alpha diversity, within community diversity. So alpha diversity means within community diversity, refers to the diversity of organisms sharing the same community habitat. Means here the ecosystem is not restricted to the particular flora, particular fauna. It is or any particular species. Ecosystem covers all the living and non-living things also, which comes in that. So here there are some types of ecosystem diversity. In that, alpha diversity means this is the community diversity, refers to the diversity of organisms sharing the same community or habitat. For example, on a particular land or in a terrestrial ecosystem, whatever organisms or living things dwells in that place, so that type of diversity is called as alpha diversity. A combination of species richness and equitability evenness is used to represent diversity within a community or habitat. Species frequently change when habitat or community changes. The rate of replacement of species along a gradient of habitats or communities is called beta diversity. Okay, let us revise again. The rate of replacement of species along a gradient of habitats or communities is called beta diversity. Means this is the between community diversity. There are differences in species composition of communities along environmental gradients. Example, altitudinal gradient, moisture gradient, etc. Higher the heterogeneity in these habitats in a region or greater the dissimilarity between communities, higher is the beta diversity. Diversity of the habitats over the total landscape or geographical area is called gamma diversity. So let us revise again. Diversity of the habitats over the total landscape or geographical area is called gamma diversity. So all in all, there are three types of ecosystem diversity. Alpha diversity, okay, then another diversity is beta diversity. In alpha diversity, we have seen that within community diversity, this is about the between community diversity, and third one is gamma diversity, which is the diversity of habitats over the total landscape or geographical area. So there are three types of ecosystem diversity: alpha diversity, beta diversity, and gamma diversity. Let us see about the biodiversity pattern. Biodiversity is not uniform throughout the world, but varies with latitude and altitude. Latitude and altitude having the major role to cause the biological diversity, because in different latitude and altitude there is different climate. So that due to different climatical condition, for example, in certain place there is rainy season, in certain place there is hot or dry climate, in certain place there is very cold climate. So due to that condition, if you observe certain species in a particular area, for example in a cold region, so we could not observe that same species in the hot region or dry climate. So this is all about due to the biological diversity. So now we are going to see biodiversity pattern. Biodiversity is not uniform throughout the world but varies with latitude and altitude. Favorable environmental conditions favor speciation and make it possible for a larger number of species to exist there. That is, biodiversity is more in such areas than the other. Latitudinal gradients. Species diversity decreased from equator towards poles. The, the tropics harbor more species than temperate and polar regions. Here, this is one of the important sentence. Species diversity decreased from equator towards poles. Why this has happened? Because at the extent of north and south pole, there is the extreme climatic conditions. Due to extreme cold climatic conditions, it is impossible to survive many species. So here, species richness or the number of species very less observed towards the pole. But there is existence of living organisms, but it is comparatively decreased from equator to poles. Then the tropics harbor more species than the temperate and polar regions. Because the favorable climatic conditions. For example, Colombia which is near equator, has 1,400 species of birds, whereas New York 41N has 105 species. Greenland 71N has 56 species, and India equator region has 1,200 species. Here N means species area relationship. Alexander von Humboldt has observed that within a region, species richness gets increased when explored area is increased, but only up to a limit. We have seen in a previous statement also, if the species area increased, then the species richness is also get increased, means number of species increased due to increase in that particular area. So this is all about the biodiversity pattern. In this lecture we have seen about the genetic diversity, species diversity, ecosystem diversity, and types of ecosystem diversity, that is alpha, beta and gamma diversity in detail, and after that biodiversity pattern, which is dependent upon latitudinal gradients and species area relationship. Thank you.